is either centripetal or centrifugal. You'll remember from your school physics that one is to do with movement in a circle dynamically going outwards, and the other is a movement in a circle powerfully going inwards. Now, why I mention this to begin with is to remind you that there have been many great river valley civilizations in the world where land masses are large, stable, and large rivers flow over vast expanses. And if you look at the great river systems of the world, the ancient civilizations grew there. Now, Crosby's geographical point is that wherever there was a major river, very long, very large, which created fertile soil for hundreds of thousands of square miles, people did not move outward. I'll give you just two examples, there are more. The Indian civilization in the Indo-Gangetic Plain and the civilization of China, or what we now call China, which was many empires around the Yangtze River. These became stable entities which did what you could call in historical terms collective navel gazing. They looked inwards, they were proud of themselves, they were very grand, they were very large, they became very complex, and they did not spin out. In India, in fact, class structures and hierarchies, you have plenty of class structures, hierarchies, and there's nothing in the world to make one more political than a hierarchy, especially if you're at the bottom of it. Now, in the Indian system, the whole caste system was created by the upper classes, the Brahmins, the priests, the rulers, and they saw to it that only the lower caste could travel. Brahmins were supposed to lose caste if they traveled. What's the larger cultural anthropological point I'm making through Crosby? Europe in the 15th century started spinning outwards, sending navigators, sailors, explorers, your Magellan as a great example of that curiosity, the thirst for adventure, knowledge, and something more mundane and hard-nosed, profit. So European expansion was enabled by two or three things. And before we come to anything called postcolonial, certain things about colonial must be understood. And we have to recognize in some fundamental way that you, in your different way, and I, in my different way, we are all products of colonial history. We are products of many other things, including our parents, including the music you consume or are consumed by, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the religious beliefs you have or are busy shedding. All that makes us too. So I'm not trying to simplify the matter, but in some profound way, the entire population of the Philippines, the entire population of India, or Singapore, or Malaysia, have been fundamentally affected by these large phenomena in colonial history. And the fact that I'm speaking to you in British English, funny thing coming from an Indian face, you're listening to me with variations of Filipinization of American accents from very un-American faces, are themselves some of the hybridized products of a globalized society which has colonial backgrounds. And literature and the productions, in your case in many languages, India has 15 official languages, each of which has more than 20 million speakers. So when we talk of scale, India is an even bigger country than the Philippines with an even denser population, has many languages, and yet here is the peculiar phenomenon that some of your most wonderfully talented people chose to write in English. You write in English if you do. I don't know how many of you can abuse fluently in 3 languages. I don't know when you fantasize or someone punches you in the stomach in which language you offer expletives, involuntary reactions. I don't know if you are bilingual, multilingual, trilingual, and when you get very angry, my mother, and I love getting her angry, because she gets very aphoristic when she's angry, and each time I have managed to really hit the 10 out of 10 mark in anger, she has uttered aphorisms which even my father had never heard. So, linguistic creativity and energy levels have a strange relationship, and the fact, as I've been discovering only over the last 2 years, that the Filipinos have been writing some of the most remarkable poems, novels, and stories that I've ever read. It should make you proud. And I'm not saying it as a habitual international tourist flattering hosts wherever I go, full of hypocrisy and disingenuity and completely cynical about what I say. Not at all. I'm generally very tough about critical standards. So when I say that I think some of your writers are wonderful, mind you, there's a lot that is crap too, but some of your writers are really remarkable. I don't know how remarkable, because I have not found Filipino literate people that interested in other people's literatures except America. And that too with slanting eyes, which sometimes deny looking in that direction and sometimes admit it, but in a guilty sort of way. So what I mean is that you yourself sometimes might find it profitable to be told how good some of your writers are, because it's not being said by a Filipino. So I offer a comparative, an international dimension to the context. And when we look at these broad perspectives, the thing to appreciate is when Europe span out, it was the seagoing nations of Europe that spun out first, the Portuguese and the Spanish, and they were followed by the British and the Dutch and the French. You can even say, in a gross but not totally false kind of simplification, that Germany started 2 world wars in the 20th century because they had nowhere else to expand. They were landlocked. The North Sea is frozen for a long time, and the Denmark Straits control that. The Italians only clobbered the Abyssinians because the Straits of Gibraltar prevent the Italians from coming to the open sea, and the British had planted large cannon there to deter anybody trying to get out. So colonialism was enabled by 3 or 4 factors. One of them is geography, but geography is a passive factor until activated by a more active factor, a mindset. The Europeans brought, what Crosby points out in the distinction between centripetal and centrifugal, an incredible mindset full of curiosity, the thirst for adventure, the willingness to suffer hardships and privations, to build knowledge and to trade. Marco Polo had allegedly gone the land route all the way to China and reported very sophisticated civilization, great trading opportunities. But if you were Marco Polo or going to imitate Marco Polo, you start off as an ambitious young merchant at age 21. By the time you finish trading in China and come back, you might be 28. And crippled probably by the many misadventures along the way. So not very viable traveling by land large distances. So navigation, the compass needle, sailboats, large ships, navigating the currents of the oceans, understanding the geography of the world, cartography. So the history of the Philippines is how the Spanish, in a way, broke the isolation of the native inhabitants that had been here obviously for thousands of years, interacting in complex cultures and powerful societies, but not going too far out in massive ways that changed them or changed the cultures around.